Hello everyone, my name is Alejandra and I am majoring in anthropology. Today I will discuss the extinction of mammoths and mastodons in North America. Thousands of species go extinct worldwide every year. Many scientists believe that this is the onset of a sixth mass extinction. A mass extinction is defined as an event that reduces a substantial amount of the planet's biodiversity. One that you may be familiar with is the dinosaur extinction that occurred at the end of the Cretaceous period. Throughout Earth's existence, it has lost over 90% of its species. Although the animals are able to rebound from such events through ecological processes, these can take between 5 and 10 million years. In light of this current situation, my objective is to understand the causes of past extinction events, which may have implications for the future of species on our planet. In 1860s Europe, scientists and other individuals began discussing environmental and human-related causes of extinctions around the globe during the Pleistocene epoch, roughly 10,000 years ago. Europe experienced the loss of giant deer, woolly mammoths, and woolly rhinoceros. In Australia, the largest marsupial to have ever lived, the diprotodon, disappeared. In South America, glyptodonts and leptopterns that once roamed the area went extinct. In North America, giant ground sloths, giant beavers, saber-toothed cats, camels, mammoth, and mastodon vanished. Africa is an anomaly during this time as fewer species went extinct than elsewhere in the world. Some of these include grazing ungulates, large rhinos, and the giant warthog. However, Africa is also interesting because it is where most large mammals remain today. All of these extinctions revolve around the disappearance of megafauna. These are large animals that weighed over 44 kilograms. Now, while all these extinctions are fascinating, each area does not appear to have the same causes for extinctions, or the effect of each cause differs. For this reason, I chose to focus my studies on North America and one specific genus of creatures that existed here, proboscideans, which includes mammoths and mastodons. In North America, proboscideans are the most studied extinct genus from the end of the Pleistocene. This means that there is more available data on these creatures, and it allows us to better study reasons for why they disappeared. Over the last few decades, various explanations and hypotheses have emerged to explain the global Pleistocene extinctions. These all fall into three categories: environmental, human, and combined hypotheses. Three specific hypotheses have risen to prominence: human hunting or overkill, climate change, or a combination of both. In 1973, Paulus Martin, a biologist from the University of Kansas, published one of the first concise papers describing overkill in North America and how it played a role in the extinctions of over 30 genera. He proposes a blitzkrieg overkill hypothesis, which involved humans arriving in North America from across the Bering Strait around 11,000 years ago. Hunter populations grew and expanded and moved south in search of more and more game to maintain their large population size. Martin infers from human qualities that hunters likely overhunted megafauna available because of wasteful tendencies. From this idea, he proposes a mathematical model that predicts that in only 1,000 years, hunters would have been able to travel throughout North and South America, depleting large animal populations, leading them to extinction. Mathematically, Martin's model is feasible. However, archaeologically, there are some concerns. Scientists who oppose Martin's model point out that there are few archaeological sites that show any relation between man and megafauna. Martin believes that this is because of the rapid rate in which humans spread across the landscape. Still, doubts persist. Archaeologists Donald Grayson and David Meltzer were very critical of Martin's model. They believed overkill was not feasible for North America and that other theories fit better. In 1984, Grayson discussed the faults with overkill and suggested further studies in the realm of climate change as an alternative. In 2002, Grayson and Meltzer presented a study of the 76 known sites at the time that contained some association between man and extinct Pleistocene megafauna. Only 14 out of the 76 sites provided enough concrete evidence to reflect a clear association, and these were not enough, in the author's view, to conclude that overkill was a cause for extinction. In 2003, Grayson and Meltzer described the lack of empirical data in Martin's models and pointed out that the Clovis people, once believed to be the first Americans, did not just hunt large mammals. They also mentioned the proboscideans were not the only genus to go extinct. 35 others disappeared, yet there is little to no evidence suggesting that these were overhunted like proboscideans. They continue to propose climate change as a leading cause. On the other hand, many scientists believed that there is more to these extinctions than just one cause. This led to the development of combined hypotheses, one being that humans and climate change both played a role in the extinction of Pleistocene megafauna. In 2017, Araujo and colleagues described how humans and climate both played a role in Pleistocene extinction, but how much each contributed to these is different, and according to them, overkill played a larger role than climate did. This article provides great evidence for a combined hypothesis. However, it does not specifically refer to the extinction of mammoths and mastodons, and therefore the question still stands. What caused the extinction of proboscideans in North America? Almost 50 years have passed since Martin's overkill paper was released, and no consensus has been reached. Therefore, this project tackles the issue of climate change and overkill in North America, specifically focusing on the extinction of mammoths and mastodons. My first task was to collect and compile the known sites in North America that contain proboscidean remains. After this, I collected the radiocarbon dates and the latitude and longitude for each site, which then served to complete a paleoenvironmental reconstruction, and lastly, a principal components analysis. In 2019, I collected a total of 70 sites, shown here in this map. Mammoth sites appear in red and mastodon sites in blue. Most of the sites appear to cluster in the Midwestern portion of the U.S. However, this shows a bias in the data. Many of the sites collected came from a previous study on Midwestern mammoths and mastodons published in 2017 by Dr. Widga and colleagues. Because of this, it appears that mammoth and mastodon may have occupied similar niche spaces, but based on dental morphology, it appears that mammoths lived in grassy regions while mastodons occupied woodlands. Therefore, more data needed to be collected. This is a map of the data collected as of this semester, and it shows a better distribution of where mammoths and mastodon live. Mammoths occupy a greater part of the region known as the Great Plains, which would have been an area with a variety of grasses, while in comparison, mastodon remain east in the woodland regions. This data then allowed us to complete a paleoenvironmental reconstruction of each site. A paleoenvironmental reconstruction allows us to study the variability in temperatures and precipitation in a certain place in the past. In this plot, you can see that we have considered 4 variables in our reconstruction: mean annual temperature in degrees Celsius, temperature seasonality, annual precipitation in milliliters, and precipitation seasonality. This plot shows us how each variable relates to another variable and plots them. Some of these plots showcase a clear pattern, while others not so much. Other variables not considered here include latitude and longitude and time. These we will consider next. This principal components analysis demonstrates how each variable relates to each other and tells us if certain variables correlate and if some do not. Each vector represents a variable, and each word in black either represents a mammoth or mastodon site. To understand this plot, we need to look at the angles between the vectors. If vectors have an angle of 90 degrees, then they are uncorrelated. If they are 180 degrees apart, they are perfectly negatively correlated. And if they are right on top of each other, they are perfectly correlated. Here, as time gets closer to the present, precipitation seasonality and temperature seasonality increase, meaning that as we move closer to the present, there has been an increase in the variation of seasons, but also a decrease in annual precipitation. From this information, we can see a picture that indicates, at least according to this data, that proboscideans living farther in the past experienced a different environment than proboscideans living closer to the present. With increasing seasonalities in temperature and precipitation, environments would have begun to change. Vegetation would not have been present year-round, and these creatures may have needed to migrate to find food. With less precipitation, there was likely less resources. With less resources, populations of animals may have been forced to compete for resources, and populations may have dwindled. Proboscideans may have needed to begin migrating to find food resources, making them vulnerable to predators, including humans. Overall, these data indicate that climate was changing, but in respect to how much climate may have affected proboscideans, we are still unsure and more research needs to be done. Therefore, to conclude, scientists still don't know what caused proboscideans to go extinct. Yet we do know that a changing environment of some sort played a role, and in today's current extinction situation, This is valuable and insightful information. Thank you very much.